Hello everyone and welcome to today's live interview with Adam Murray. My name is Scott and I'm your host for today. Before we start, I'd just like to say thank you very much for signing up to this year's competition. For those of you who don't know, this is the Leaders Award competition where we ask the question, if you were an engineer, what would you do? Pupils from the ages of 3 to 19, anywhere in the UK can join before they are tasked with identifying a problem in the world that they want to solve. Now, during these interviews, we're going to be speaking with people who work on loads of different projects, all of them showing the wonderful, interesting and exciting careers that are out there for you. We're going to start by learning all about Adam and BPM SFX, which is one of the world's leading multi-award winning special effects companies, before we open up to the audience for questions. If you do have a question, please type them in the chat with your name and school and I will read them out. But that's enough from me. Adam, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Scott. Yeah, very good. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, I thank you very much for joining us. Just to start, who are BPM SFX and what do they do?
So BPM SFX, as you just sort of outlined, is one of the world's leading multi-award winning special effects companies. We supply all levels of special effects all over the world to live event productions, sporting events, festivals, TV studios. We work with high-profile artists and management, musicians, event producers, event planners, tour and production managers, which we'll get into a little bit as we talk about what those things are. But basically, in short, we provide a service to all kinds of different large-scale events. Some of them, which I'm sure some will know, things like this year we did the Oasis UK and Ireland tour. We did all the fireworks and the pyrotechnics for those guys. We've just done a Chris Brown world tour, Doja Cat European tour, Prodigy world tour that had a lot of lasers. So all these Lewis Capaldi, and then we move into things like Formula One, the big boxing events for Matchroom Sports, so Anthony Joshua and his big ring walks and things like that. Creamfields, Wireless, Glastonbury, Parklife, Leeds and Reading, Radio One Big Weekend are all shows that we've been heavily involved in this year, really. So I guess from who we are, that's what we do. But what is SFX? What exactly do you do? What does that mean? So SFX is a range. It's kind of like saying we do a range of effects for different clients because everybody's different now. So instance, I just kicked out there, obviously Oasis was a massive one and they had a huge fireworks display, but sometimes we do little things like little TV shows and TV where they're looking for little ambient effects. So it can be a range of things from lasers to confetti effects, obviously pyrotechnics, which are on stage and on roofs and big festivals and what have you, and they differ a little bit from fireworks and things. Fireworks, as I'm sure in the moment this week, there's a lot of people going off to fireworks events. Our stuff is designed to be close proximity. So when you're at a stage and you're at a show, we're designed to be close and in around you on that show. We're not designed to be half a mile away in a field when you're watching it type thing. So that's why we're specialist in what we do. There's lots of SFX companies and lots of fireworks companies, but we do sort of the range of everything. So our clients come to us, we do everything from flames, confetti, cryogenic and atmospheric effects, all the way through to little effects on stages for low smokes and TV and all sorts of different things.
That is amazing. I'm just going to pull up on the screen your website as well, just so people can get a sense of some of the amazing things that you guys do. But just while I do that, can you tell us what's your role then at BPM SFX?
So I am the managing director and one of the two owners. So and ultimately, I'm responsible for everything that happens at BPM. I'm the most senior person in charge of the day-to-day operations, and ultimately, I'm responsible for all the major decisions on strategic or financial matters and director and department heads tasking. But luckily, I have a fantastic team around me. and they manage a lot of those elements alongside me at different levels throughout my business. And things like technical production, research and development, where we make certain effects or elements for in-house for what we want to do for shows, or project coordinators who make sure the crew are where they're supposed to be, or project managers who are looking after advancement of those shows and making sure that everything goes well on them, right the way through to sort of client contacting us through to the end. So I have a great team around me. It's not just me every day doing it. I guess day to day, my job differs a little depending on what is happening with our company and our shows and our staff and the staff that the issues that the staff are having at any one time. Anything can happen in the events industry and does happen. So things get lost, crew get delayed going to shows and tours and flights, and obviously things happen on shows. People move things, they add things, they take away things. So it's an ever changing landscape, really. So my job day to day really is to make sure that my staff are supported to the best of their ability. They know what they're doing regarding any issues or to give them sort of clear direction on what we're looking to achieve day to day in their roles, and then overall as a company and how we achieve that together day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. So I guess overall, I'm at the top, just making sure everything's going all right, but I also support daily my fantastic staff at different levels throughout.
And one of the things that you and I were talking about just before we started this is sort of your journey to getting here. Can you tell us, how did you end up, doing these events all around the world?
Doing the SFX side. So yeah, I guess, I didn't really come into this with a huge academic sort of career behind me. I'm from a place called Rosendale, where I grew up in. It's sort of sandwiched in between Burnley and Bury and Blackburn, so it's a lovely place, but quite a quiet place. It's not. I went to a local grammar school where I did sort of my GCSEs, and then moved on within the same grammar school to that sixth form to do my A levels, and then I went to a university called in Warrington and did a BA honours in leisure and business management. I excelled in sport throughout, played football for numerous teams and different levels as well, like basketball, athletics, boxing, and all sorts. I love to be out and active. Sport was my passion, and now I still love to do when I can sport, when I'm getting old. And I love to go to the gym and cook. So I guess my story will be a little bit different to some of the past engineers that have been on here, and I've had very good academic careers before moving on to the chosen field of industry or work. I was a little bit middle of the road in terms of academics. Not bad, but not amazing either. And I left university kind of not 100% knowing what I wanted to do, to be honest. So how did I get into SFX? How did I fall into it? I guess when I came back, we started to do, we were hiring things off and buying things off cutting edge suppliers in Europe, and we were starting to do our own club nights and things at a local club in Burnley, and it really developed from there. From there, I started the company. We started providing special effects at larger scale events, smaller festivals, and smaller DJs and club nights and things like that. So we started pretty small back in 2008, but we were very good very quickly. We set up links, like I say, with new cutting edge suppliers who were making amazing effects in Holland, in Germany, in Slovakia, and places like that, which I guess was the main reason, is that we were navigating a lot of people and getting cutting edge effects, establishing our own ways and means of using those effects on shows. And clients like the Swedish House Mafia, Calvin Harris, Radio 1, Dizzy Rascal, all these guys came on board with us quite early. And as you can see, if you scroll through all the different things that we do year on year, we've always had a really sort of high profile status quite early on. So we just worked and worked and worked at that. And from there, we've grown throughout, and now we're based at a place called Oak Mill, which is a 48,000 square foot facility in Dunnockshaw, which is just at the top of Burnley, in between Burnley and Rosendale. And it's fantastic for us because obviously we're blowing stuff up and we've got flames going all the time, a pyro going off. So it doesn't really work for us to be in a highly industrial area. I think people would be ringing the fire brigade every 5 minutes because of where we are. We have great residents and people around us, and I think they're equally proud of what we've done. We brought a mill that's nearly 300 years old back into use. It was actually a munitions factory for both world wars, so it's already got a little bit of explosive history there. And like I say, we've sort of custom made it out. I think if you look in the mill there, you can see the state of it, how it was before and after, and we've sort of gone on and made this our own. We're very proud of it. And yeah, it just gives us the means. Having a facility like this gives us the means and the ability to be able to prep these shows, to advance these shows, to train our technicians and our staff, and to provide what we believe is one of the top 5 SFX suppliers in the world.
Well, when you say about planning for these events, can you tell us a little bit about how you go from idea to reality when creating the effects for something like the Chase and Status UK tour, which just looks incredible?
Of course, yeah. I mean, Chase and Status, so these things come to us in very different ways. I guess Chase and Status was a really big design, and you can see there's just flames everywhere. Now, what that came from the artist directly. The year before, we'd done a big show at Milton Keynes with them, and we'd done this in a much smaller capacity. Maybe had like 2-4 flames on 2 towers coming out. And the artists loved it. The audience crowd reaction loved it. So they came to us with this brief very early on of big flames above the crowd. Now, as you can see from the pictures there, Scott, we have our flame section, but the rigging and the trussing isn't ours. So we had to work quite quickly with the lighting designers and the rigging trussing to show what we did. We had to custom design drop down sections, and then we made custom holders and gas delivery systems so that the flames came out horizontally. Normally, if you can look at the other stage, it's good they're going vertically, and once you tilt them, because of the safety sensors, they just won't go off. So we had to reroute that completely to a new horizontal sort of effect that went out over the audience. As you can imagine, that then has to be sent to the arenas. We have to show them what we have to do, and I guess clients come to us in all sorts of ways and means. A couple of them very different. So, you know, we have clients come to us that are artists or artist managers, and they might have a creative designer or a lighting designer, and they're very specific. They know exactly what they want. There's a design there. It's within the design of the whole show. So they're designing not just the SFX, but the lighting and the video and how that all comes together. So it's very clean and clear. Then we have clients that come to us that are kind of working for artists or events, and they're not too sure what they want. And they have video providers, lighting providers, and SFX providers, and we all come together to work together to design a show together. Those guys are generally called production managers or production companies, and they then will take our designs and go to the artist and get that okayed, or it'll come back not okayed or with input. And then the last one, which I kind of get, are with clients who know that they want big things, but they have absolutely no idea what they want. So they give us a bit more of a blank canvas, and we'll work within their sort of parameters of what they've set on staging or within venues, or some things are outside, some things are inside. So we'll go back to them with a very definite brief and what it is. And it's very much like what you're seeing here on plans and plots. And they will come back and either okay that or comment on it and amend it, and we get to a point where their show design is set in. Everything changes. It's never as per what it is on paper or what's discussed, and that's the reason that all tours, all big shows that are touring out will have what's called a rehearsal period. And that's a period of normally between 5 and 7 days where this show goes into a rehearsal facility. There's some quite big ones. There's ones in London Heathrow. There's ones in Birmingham. There was a particularly big one called Production Park over in Wakefield. Again, very much like us, they can't be setting up huge shows and have lots of residents around, and there would be complaints every night. So yeah, these things go in and then things change, things move, they add, they change, the artist gets involved, and you actually run a full-scale show within a rehearsal facility. So anything that's to do with that show is generally worked out there. So most times when you get to a venue, or you're on the venue tour lines, all these different shows all over the UK or Europe or the world in some cases, they're already worked out in terms of where you've gone. But the design element and where it goes, yeah, we can have anything from creative designers, production managers, artists themselves, which is what happened with Chase and Status, sort of speccing that in terms of this is what we want to happen, and we go away and work with their guys, their creative designers or designers from there to integrate it.
So when you spend so much time sort of planning it all out and having input from all these different places, you then have to tour it. So what sort of problems do you and the team face when designing special effects for tours that play in venues of very different sizes or layouts?
Yeah, I mean, it can be very challenging, and as I've just said, it can be a never evolving landscape. Normally works out rehearsal, but as you say, you get to venues and then perhaps it doesn't. I've been to venues with stadium level shows and they don't fit, so you're sort of then going back to the drawing board. So the main thing you have to be with effects as a company and as a technician is flexible. You know, things change and you have to change with that. Ultimately, our very first priority and where we start from is safety. That no one can get hurt, no one's going to get injured, then we get on to everyone has a great show. So it's really that knowledge and that experience, and also being able to speak to the artists and the venues and be clear about what the parameters of these effects are. And they might not work. The venues might say, well, we're not happy with that, we're not going to do that. So then there's that end of coming in as well with available options about what they can do. I'm sure as we get to the end of this, I think we're going to go through some different SFX on the ranges, and you will see a flame is not just flame. We don't just have one flame. I think we have 9. I think we have 16 different types of lasers, 5 different types of confetti machines. So there's always a viable option in terms of what we can do within a venue, but yeah, it's ever changing. But we set off with safety first, and generally our senior project managers who are out there, and we talk about the staff and what staff we have and what they do in a minute, they will generally make sure all the information, anything that's changing, anything that's not happy, that safety distances aren't achieved and things like that, will all be caught beforehand, because we get what's called the venue packs and we imprint our show, or the production manager will imprint the overall show on the venue pack. So, and that is almost to, well, I want to say to the centimetre, but maybe not quite, but it's very, very exact. So if you are having any problems with anything, it's normally highlighted quite early up front, and you get to work through that and either provide an alternative or move it, or you have a discussion about how you're going to achieve what that artist wants to achieve in their show.
Well, yeah, you mentioned there about all the different types of special effects. So what are the types you specialise in? Looking at the photos, we can see lasers, we've seen flames, we've seen fireworks, you've mentioned so much more. What can you tell us about the special effects?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go into and click into the SFX option on the top there, you'll sort of see as the drop down comes, there you go. So let's click flames for a minute, so you can see there with the flames. And as I was saying, so these are all on the left, different flames. So you've got flames that are like what you would expect, a generic flame. Mostly flames are either gas or they are either liquid flame powered. So you'll see some of them here, the big X behind is a gas effect, and the big AJ, which is sort of what we do for Anthony Joshua's ring walks. I'm sure a few people know who that is. He has the big liquid flames behind it, called the Infernos. Now we have all sorts of different flames, from coloured flames to flames that rotate to 5-finger flames. So there's never any particular spec that comes in that isn't flexible in terms of looking at what they want. Sometimes they come with something else, and we actually show them different types, and they change their mind quite quickly. So you've got games effects, and you've got your confetti effect. If you click to the confetti, it's a very similar
Oh yeah.
You can see these go on. I think overall across the board we have about 80 or 90 standard effects, which are all effects that are stock effects that we could propose for your shows, and they're very different. I think if you click to lasers now, is something a little bit different there. You'll see, and like I say, the lasers, if you go to fixtures, Scott, on there, and you'll see again, we've got, these are our little small. So the Club Max 34s are quite cool. They're something that we made in house. They're a smaller effect, and like I said, they have all sorts of different effects. You can diverge the beams, which means you get that sort of diffracted effect. You've got X, Y. So there are much, but the 3400 actually stands for the 3.4 watt of power. Now, 3.4 watt of power, when I say we've also got 120 watt powered lasers, you can see the difference in it. But these are quite cool because, you know, we designed these as a smaller laser that had a couple of different functions. What was out there in the market was too big in terms of power, so we wanted something that someone could have 20, 30 of them on the show, and we could do smaller venues, or you could do TV with them. So our guys, Daniel and Matt, needed to come together to engineer. First of all, the first part of engineering in that element was to draw it, to understand what it was that we were trying to make. Then I also have hardware machinery, so that then gets fed into what's called the CCM machine. They then cut all the parts needed, so all the box parts, all the metals, all the working parts. And then I also have to make all the circuitry board and the electrical engineering side of it needs to go into it. And then once, as I'm sure you can see in all these different pictures, we don't just go with one laser or one flame or one confetti machine. These things are always multiples. Most of the time with lasers, you're in anywhere between 8 and 30 lasers. So then we have to figure out almost the brain of it, which is called the racks, and the software service inside of it, which is how we control all these lasers. Artists don't want them to just go on, off. They want them to do all sorts of different things. So we need to build racks and brains for these things that allow us to do that. And if an artist in a show says, oh, I want it to do this color, I want it to go that, or I want it to do this effect, we have that ability to do that. So again, being flexible is key to it. But in terms of engineering and how we tie into that, I guess this is a real engineering point all the way along from the CAD drawing at the start through to the building and cutting out of the elements that we need to make it, to cut to the circuit boards and electrical engineering to make it, and then cut into how do we control it and build more of them and have a better control and flexibility on our products as we go out there. So.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, it sounds there's so much engineering involved because so much of it you build and design. And just going to the questions now, we've had a few questions come in, and one of the questions from Sophie McKenna is, does your company have buildings anywhere else in the world? And I wanted to use that as a chance to ask, what's the logistics of creating and designing it all here in the northwest of England and then seeing a world tour happen?
So what happens in touring is actually the logistics side of it is generally, certainly in tours, looked after by the artist and what would be the production manager. The production manager is the main guy, so he's not just getting the SFX, he's also getting the lighting, the video, the catering to feed his crew, the busing, the trucking. So you're normally put within that tour line of it. Now, we do have another building. Yeah, we have one down in Leicester, in the Midlands. I like to call that the lab. It's where the laser guys and our electrical engineers are and they obviously are doing a lot of research and development. They do a lot of fixes as well. Lasers are incredibly tricky to navigate to fix, so there's a lot of experience down there. They make the racks, they make the electrical engineering element of it, and they come up with the R&Ds. They're always up to something. They're always doing something, spending money. I'm never quite 100% because research and development, it always brings something else. So we might set off on wanting to make one thing, and then the guys down there, when they trial and error a lot of different things and how they're going to make it, they actually discover something else. So we may start off on one tangent and then they find something else and they say, well, what about this? So they're very creative. They're much more we're very functional here, very operational. There's a lot of staff here that basically make sure that the tour is one, sort of advanced right, designed right, and then our guys go on tour with it and operate it. But yeah, we have a separate building which is where they're off down making all sorts, and I call it the lab because you're never quite sure what's going to come out of there.
I love it. There's a question, and with it being bonfire night this week when we're filming the interview, the Bank View Maths class want to know how is a firework made and how long does it take, and are they all designed the same?
Well, the firework is a little bit different to what we do. So you'll see there's lots of firework companies all over the place, and they tend to be, there are some big ones, but a lot of firework companies are quite small. Now, remember what we did at the start. Why are we different to firework companies? Well, the main reason is because of proximity. So it'd be no good if you were watching a show and we were half a mile away doing this in the field for you. So fireworks are made from black powder, the same type of stuff, but they're made from a lot bigger and a lot more compound. And what that means is when you go to a fireworks and when you're watching the fireworks, what you'll see is when you're looking up at the fireworks is some stuff coming down what they call hot fallout. Now, we don't touch wood, I better touch wood here. We don't get hot fallout on our shows because obviously we can't be raining down hot fallout on crowd members and things like that. So ours is actually it's almost like saying within a house there's a builder and there's a plumber. They do two very different jobs in the house. So we're kind of on the side of we're specialists when you get to stadiums or when you get to close proximity, and that's all effects. That's not just the pyro, but we do love a bit of fireworks every now and again. Unfortunately, a lot of times the events and festivals and things we do, because of the needed sterile areas and what have you, they're not really viable for fireworks. So what you think you're watching is fireworks, but what you're actually watching is close proximity display pyrotechnics, and there's a big difference in how close they can be, and there's a big difference in cost, to be honest with you. So yeah.
I like that. Everyone out there now, next time you see this in real life, you could say they're not actually fireworks.
Yeah,
we've got time for a few more questions. I really like this one from St John's School. Which one of the machines or effects do you think is the most impressive, and why?
Oh, gosh, that's the question. I mean, I love the display pyro, right? All the big stuff, got to be the big finish, but I love all my effects, and they're all my favorites in some ways. I've had amazing moments, and I've been very privileged to be in places where we might be having ambient confetti falls for Adele, or we're lighting up, 120 watt lasers and 20 flames and 20 CO2 jets for Calvin Harris or the Swedish House Mafia, right down to, we're just doing Ray at the moment, and she's got a very ambient sort of effect with LSGs and things going on around her. So there's no right one. I think in the moment, it depends, obviously, Ray singing a ballad at the Royal Albert Hall, 20 odd flames going off around it would have been fantastic. But the way that the designer has made the ambient effects of low smoke and atmospheric looks fantastic. Then again, when I'm on my big festival stages, my Creamfields main stage, my wireless main stages, I love to see the big flames and the big pyro out. So it all depends in what moment, which is my effect. I've got to say, probably, if you pushed me, the big pyro or the big lasers, just because I think they're the big wow moment effects, really. So I love that.
They are.
You get a lot from the crowd. From our perspective, we're normally sat on stage, and yeah, it's spine tingling when you start doing for the guys now. Not so much me, unfortunately, anymore. I'm not there that as much, so I watch a lot back on video. But for the guys who are doing it, my techs and technicians, you know, this is the amazing part of the job when you get to be on a stage and you do something and 60, 80, 100,000 people react to it. It feels amazing. And to be part of that whole show, it really, I think that's probably the best part of being a technician. It's certainly what I miss, you know, being without not firing as many shows as I used to, because I've got just great staff, unbelievable staff.
I think we've got time for two more questions. I like this one that's come in from Blackhall Primary School. How do you make sure that the lasers don't move so that they always make their special patterns?
Right. That's a very good question. It's a technical question now. So what we do, again, remember we talked about rehearsals. Now, laser technicians have a bit of a rough ride. So as the special effects technicians, you can set up at any time and do what have you. So in the tour, it's not too bad, but when we're doing the big festivals, the laser technicians have to go in actually the night before the show, right? Because you don't see lasers in daylight, so you've only got light.
Yeah.
Set them up. So what we do is the techs and the equipment will go in. So let's say there was a Friday night show. As soon as that Friday night show finishes at 11 o'clock, within an hour, my laser technicians are on that stage setting up with regards to the Saturday night show, but they're going to do what's called an overnight in the night. And what they do and what our lasers have, and the term is called zoning. And zoning is setting a parameter of where those lasers will film in. Remember what we had talked about with safety. And there's physical effects. There's what's called masking plates. If you imagine the lasers coming out, if it drops below something, it would just hit the back of the masking plates that we have on there. So, but we set them all up in zones, and the poor lighting designers and operators are there till 4 or 5 in the morning with the laser techs, and they go through all the looks and how they want them and what happens there. So it's actually all already kind of pre-designed before we even start the show, what those looks are going to be. That said, there's still, you know, you still got to hit the cue, you've still got to hit the right timing. We don't get a chance to go, hang on, we messed that up, let's just go back, try it again. You only get one chance, and that's why I think it's so exhilarating as a job to be in this. And like I said, when you're doing those elements for the crew and the guys that do it out there, they're the real sort of real buzz moments for them. Yeah.
And I think just that leads in really nicely to the last question, which comes from Mrs. McSween's class at St John's School. So you've got all that planning, all that preparing, all that designing, everyone's ready. So on the big day, do you enjoy the before, during, or after the most?
I enjoy the during, always the during. The before, it depends, because sometimes you might, like any profession, sometimes you're on the minutes and you don't even realize, so you don't even have that sort of lead up to the show. Now, if you finish earlier, you've done the night before, you are literally feeling like you're just waiting. And there's, you know, my guys will check again. And sometimes it's important, and we tell our crew, and we make sure our crew chiefs make sure this happened, that we downtime before a show a little bit if we can, because it just leads to a pressure pot situation. The best technicians are the ones that are confident, they're relaxed, they're understanding what's going on around them and what they've got to deal with in the night. But yeah, during the show, like I say, hearing the roars of the crowd, which, you know, are obviously for the artist, but some of the things you're doing in and around the artist get response from the crowd. They're the amazing things about it. After the show is pure relief, to be honest with you. And in all honesty, like I say, you've always, most venues or festivals or what have you, they've always, unless you're on the Sunday night or you're on a night where no one's on the night after, which is very rare, they've always someone coming in at the back of you. So at 11:10, you look at the backstage and there's some other touring crew or some other big artist crew desperate to get on and get it in and get it done. So you never really have that much time to think about it after. Normally the show's just bang, pull like that. It's the most common thing we hear. Boom, it just an hour and a half, 2 hours just goes because you're just so engrossed in it. And like I said, during is, I think if you asked anybody within our industry, during is always the best moment. It's the best bit of the job, in all honesty.
I can imagine. Well, just looking at the time, we're going to bring this interview to a close. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us, but a massive thank you to you, Adam, for joining us and telling us all about BPM SFX and helping to inspire all those engineers in the making out there, because everyone, it is your turn to come up with your own ideas. Remember, you're looking to identify a problem in the world. Maybe it's a nice new special effects you can do at a tour and come up with a solution for that problem. You then draw that idea, write a letter telling us all about it and send it to us. But I just want to say thank you very much again to everyone for joining us, and a massive thank you to Adam. And remember, if you were an engineer, what would you do?